What is up, everybody? This is NerdingOutSports, and today previewing the American League Division Series between the New York Yankees and the Tampa Bay Rays. It's finally here. Game 1 tonight. Garrett Cole versus Blake Snell. The aces of the two staffs going at it. The Yankees have not announced a Game 2 starter yet, but Tampa, I believe, has announced it's going to be Glasnow. I think Tampa's going with Snell, Glasnow, and Morton. The Yankees have not decided on a Game 2 starter. And I think right there is the glaring differences in the two teams because they both have really good offenses. I think the Yankee bullpen has definitely taken a step back this year, but they still do have a strong bullpen. Tampa also has a good bullpen. But the Rays have more consistency in their rotation because they know who they're going with. The Yankees could easily say, well, Tanaka's Game 2 because he has that playoff pedigree in the past, but he didn't look too good against Cleveland. A lot of that can be blamed on the weather and the delayed start because after that first inning, he looked more like playoff Tanaka. So they could go with Tanaka, but at the same time, they can't afford to have J-Happ sitting there for too long and then expect him to pitch a Game 3 on what would be, 10 days rest or something like that. So I think they're going to go with J-Happ in Game 2. And that might sound crazy, but it's actually not because he was probably our second best pitcher behind Garrett Cole. I think the Yankees have to avoid going to Montgomery at all costs in this series. I would feel a lot more comfortable with Garcia pitching. Montgomery has just been way too up and down. Whereas Garcia has pitched really well aside from really one bad start against the Red Sox. So if I'm Aaron Boone, I'm probably going J-Happ in Game 2 and then Tanaka in Game 3. This way you have that experience at the top of your rotation. And then if you have to go to somebody other than Garrett Cole in a potential Game 4, you might go with Garcia, even if it's just for a few innings, and then maybe you can bring in Montgomery if it needs to happen. But I think you have to avoid Montgomery as a starter in this series. But looking at Game 1, pitching-wise, the Yankees know what Garrett Cole brings to the table. They're going to have Higashioka catching him in this one, and I think that's fine. Now, I'm a huge fan of Gary Sanchez. I know a lot of people have their issues with Gary Sanchez. They don't like him. They say he sucks and all that stuff. I'm a huge fan of Gary Sanchez. I want nothing more than this guy to be the player that he was just even last year. Because the guy we've seen this year, that's not Gary Sanchez. He's really struggled, and I don't know what it is. But I am okay with him not being in the lineup tonight because it kind of reminds me of back in 2009 when the Yankees had Jose Molina catching A.J. Burnett. Now, Burnett had some bad starts in that postseason, but he also had some really good starts. So if it works, if the Cole to Higashioka connection works, then stay with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it ain't broke right now, so we'll see what happens tonight. But the Yankee lineup, even without Sanchez, 1 through 8, because Higashioka is going to be hitting ninth, 1 through 8, the Yankees have no excuse. If they can't hit Blake Snell, then he's just on his A game. And that's entirely possible because Blake Snell is a hell of a pitcher. But what the Yankees need to do is exactly what they did in Cleveland against Bieber and against Carrasco. Make them work. They made Shane Bieber, who's probably the Cy Young winner right now, look like a rookie. They made him look like a guy who had no idea what he was doing. They got to him immediately in the first inning. Base hit, home run. They got to him right out of the gates. And they knocked off his psyching right off the bat. Pun intended. And the same thing with Carrasco. He got off to a fast start, but they kept making him throw. So you knew eventually they were going to strike. And then Stanton hit that home run. They started to climb back. And then, of course, the Gio grand slam. And the offense was rolling from that point on. They were able to keep fighting, going back and forth with the Indians in that game. So I think they need to have that same exact approach against a guy like Snell because this guy while he has that great fastball, his breaking stuff is incredible too. But you can't be biting at those pitches. So, looking at guys like Judge and looking at guys like Stanton, even Luke Voit, guys, and even Torres as well, guys who have been known to chase those pitches, their plate discipline in this series is going to be huge, specifically in this very game. I mean, same thing goes for Glasnow in game 2. Be patient. That's how the Yankees have won their championships in the past. As good as their lineups are, because they can hit, and they can hit for power, and they can drive in a ton of runs, it's just as important to make the opposing pitcher throw a lot and get on base. And a guy that, believe it or not, I think is going to be a huge X factor in this series is Aaron Hicks. Because when this lineup is at full strength, Aaron Hicks hitting in the 6 or 7 hole is perfect. Because his average isn't that high, but this guy knows how to get on base. He draws walks, he runs well, he can score. This is just offensively speaking. I think he's a great center fielder. But I think he has a chance to be a real X factor in this series. So for the offense, the key is just do what you did in Cleveland. It's a completely different pitching staff, I get it, but be patient. Wait for your pitch. And don't get into any altercations. Don't get into any fights. We know there's bad blood with these two teams. The Yankees have to avoid that at all costs. But looking at, and then you can't forget about Tampa Bay's lineup. Because they have beaten up Garrett Cole this year. I think Cole's ERA is like 4.5 against the Rays this year. Now, that was pitching to Gary Sanchez. So we'll see if with Higashioka and it being in a neutral site at Petco Park, if that really does have a factor. Another thing is specifically for Game 1, I think the Yankees, they have to avoid a pitching duel. As good as the Yankee bullpen can be, they haven't shown it lately. Look at Game 2 against Cleveland. The bullpen, Chad Green struggled. Britton got into a little trouble. Gave up some runs. Chapman didn't look good. And those are really only your 3 go-to guys out of your bullpen. Because can you really trust Ottavino at this point? You clearly can't go to Loaizaga again because he looked overwhelmed. Do you go to Luis Sessa? Do you go to Jonathan Holder or Nick Nelson? So definitely some decisions there when it comes to the bullpen management, something Aaron Boone has struggled with. The Yankees won Game 2 against Cleveland, but Aaron Boone made a lot of boneheaded decisions. And Gio Urshela saving that game with the defensive play in the bottom of the 8th was huge. But I think this is going to be a good series. As a fan, a Yankee fan, I want it to be a Yankee sweep. But realistically, I can see this one going 5. The Yankees have not played well against the Rays this year, and I think they really want to erase that and get to them in this series and try to get to them early and often. But again, it's going to be about patience at the plate. The better offense, obviously, because you have to score more runs, but the better offense is going to win this series. As good as the pitching staffs can be and all that. Because both of these teams know how to work the counts and they know how to get guys on. They know how to score. The way I see it, these two teams are pretty evenly matched, even though the Rays were just a hell of a lot better. Light years better than the Yankees during the regular season. But now there's no excuse. The Yankees are healthy. The Yankees are healthy now. They have no excuse. So I'm not going to make a prediction, but I think obviously in a best of 5, Game 1 is the most important, of course, aside from the clinching game. So whoever wins this game probably wins the series. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Who do you think's going to win this series? How many games do you think it's going to go? What are your predictions for Game 1? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe. Let's go, Yankees. I will see you guys next time. Peace out.